Okay, so we kind of seen how we can take things and put them in the grid, and how we can kind of get our web page to really flow nice, and how it looks, making sure we use the white space and not have it all conjumbled. Another thing talks about is keeping a flat hierarchy. It says making sure that we follow the 3 clicks rule. That is, do not make your users click more than 3 times to get to the content they desire. Now, we have found out that for web pages in a commercial use, people are not going to basically wait more than about 3 to 5 seconds for a web page to load. Now, along those same lines, people may click once, twice, maybe 3 times, but that's about as far as it's going to go. If you make them go deeper than that to get to the content they want, they're going to bail on your website. So again, make sure you have links in your menu. That's why you notice a lot of menus will have main menus, and when you hover over them, it brings up sub-menus down below. So it allows your user to get to a website very, very quickly, and it's just a matter of a couple of clicks. And so when we use our URLs, URLs is Universal Resource Locator, which is basically a web address. When we put those on our website, we have to think about how people are going to utilize those links. When are they going to click on them? How are they going to click on them? And how it's going to basically fit into your website. So for example, let's say you have a website on baby stuff. Well, you're not going to have a link to some automotive web page because it doesn't flow, it doesn't fit in that website. So if you need to go, maybe if you do have an automotive section of your web page along with baby stuff, then you need to go back to the main page and basically branch off from there. You don't want to have a direct link from your baby site into that. I think the example they have is 33. So this is another thing that we always want to do, is we don't want to have just our links off to the side over here. Let's include links right inside of our text. And the Wikipedia is great for that. So as we're going along, we'll see some blue text that says, hey, if you want to learn about more exploring Northern Canada, you click right there, it takes you to an Explore Northern Canada. If we're going along, all of a sudden the Victorian age, wow, we can click that, and sure enough, it takes us straight to a Wikipedia page on the Victorian age. So this is really, really another great factor about web pages. Let your user, if you are talking about, you're talking about your baby page, you've got a link about diaper rash, take them to a site about diaper rash. What causes it? What are the best ways to take care of diaper rash? When is it severe? When is it not severe? I mean, those are all things people might want to know about. Do they have to click on it? No, they can continue on reading. But if they want to learn more, they can basically learn more by using that link. So that's not. Now, we get to a point where it says, how much is too much content? So when do we get too much? Well, here is a video of, a lot of these news sites are doing this now. They have a lot of advertising at the bottom. They have a video, they have the dial screen, they've got, so it's really kind of got a lot of stuff going on. Yeah, they're utilizing the white space, but man, sometimes there's just too much here. So here we've got a category on vesting, and here's that. And so sometimes, this is probably okay. This is probably okay, but sometimes it can just get to be too much. Here's one specifically for reading. So this one's designed just for reading. Okay, now this is something we want to talk about, is putting in document. So just think about taking a Word document and putting it as a web page. That's probably something you don't want to do. If you want them to have that document, give them a link to it, let them download it, let them basically open it up on their own. But don't make it a web page where they have to read, unless it specifically is a web page made for reading. Maybe you have a book maybe something to that effect. But for the most part, let's not do this in a document format. You know, web pages are made to be interactive. It's kind of like when I teach PowerPoint. You don't put text in PowerPoint. You put bullet points. You put maybe a 3 or 4 words, and then the speaker, the speaker, is the one who expounds on that. Well, same thing with web pages. We have links that basically take us to the detail. I don't want to read all the detail in one spot. So, yeah, and here's another page that does the same thing. So the next thing we need to talk about is we have folks out there who have some type of a disability, and they need to look at a website. And we don't know if it's a physical disability, whether they're sight impaired, maybe they have you know, the color blindness. That's another thing too. There's like 10% of all males are colorblind, only 1% of females. And so we really have to basically worry about colors especially if colors mean something to our website. So make sure we use the color differentiations that let folks with color blindness able to see the website and know how to pick things out. So a lot of different things there as well, as far as making sure that, again, we you know, folks who are sight impaired. Now, one of the things I'm working with right now, a project I'm on, is this thing called AODA. We call it AODA, and that stands for Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act. So the Canadian province of Ontario has developed a law that says if you're going to do business in that country, your website has to be available for all folks in that country with disabilities. So we have to make sure that, and I've got one on my computer at work, it's actually a reader that reads. When I click on a website, it just starts reading everything on that web page. And it will say, like in this example here, so it would point to the school, it would say, the school is a link, Chester is a link, courses is a link. So it would let the person accessing this website knowing that that is a link, and then they can click on it. And primarily folks who are vision impaired don't use a mouse because they can't see it, so they're using the keyboard, the tab. And that's another thing. You have to make sure that your website is tabbable. Very, very important. If you can't tab through and it basically flows to each item, then it's not going to be basically viewable by somebody who is vision impaired. Maybe folks have a vision impairment where they need to have a contrast. So we can actually change it to contrast. That means it makes it look like a negative. Well, some web pages don't look good in a contrast or a negative format. So we have to make sure that our colors and things are basically viewable in those types of situations. Now, some websites like this one here actually has accessibility contents at the very top. So they let the person know that, hey, high contrast, accessibility information, site zooms, you can actually make the font bigger. So some web pages actually do that right there on their web page. So that's kind of nice. A lot of work. There's a lot more work involved there because you have to make sure that when they click on, let's say, increase the font, it does just that. So it talks about this WCAG, and WCAG is basically, if I can find it, the W3C. Now, remember we talked last week about W3C, and that's that official group of folks who got together and kind of put regulations and guidelines for all internet web pages. So the WC3 Web Accessibility Initiative. So that's basically what those folks have got together and developed this WCAG. And they've developed some guidelines. And so the first thing they talk about is perceivable content. Perceivable content says that you need to provide text alternatives for any non-text content so that it can be change into other forms people need. For example, large fonts, those types of things. Provide synchronized alternatives for multimedia. So if you have a multimedia, make sure you have an alternative for that. So if it's a movie, make sure you have the textual format for that video. Create content that can be presented in different ways. For example, spoken out loud in a simpler layout and so on. So again, making sure that for folks who can't see, they can still get the content of that particular item you're trying to basically present to them. Make it easier for people with disabilities to see, hear content, including separating a foreground separating foreground from background. So making sure that we just hear what needs to be heard and then nothing else. Next thing we have is called operable content. This is where we want to make all functionality available from the keyboard. Again, folks who can't see can't use a mouse. They can't see a little air pointer move around on the screen. So they have to use the keyboard. Tab, 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 tab. Provide users who have disabilities enough time to read and use the content. So if you've got something that kind of flashes and moves on and flashes and moves on, you can't do that with folks who are vision impaired. You have to let them keep the timing going. When they read something, let them basically go on. Do not create content that is known to cause seizures. Flashing lights is one thing. When flashing lights start going off, it triggers some folks into an epileptic seizure, so we can't do that on our websites as well. Provide ways to help users with disabilities navigate, find content, and determine where they are. So when they come to a website, where can they go to basically find out where they are and basically go to a different website? Kind of like a navigation portal somewhere on that page those folks can get to. We also then have what's called understandable content, and that's where the content, we make the text content readable, understandable. Okay, so we may have some type of a program that reads that and reads it to the person, and we have to basically make it readable, making sure that they understand it. Make the web pages appear and operate in predictable ways. So again, when they basically point to something and hit this button, they expect something to happen. If it doesn't happen, then they're lost. They have no idea what to do. So we got to make sure that we always flow the same exact way, the way accessibility web pages are supposed to flow. Again, we usually have our tab, space, and enter buttons. Those are the main buttons, and they all do certain things. And so we make sure we have to follow those guidelines. Help users avoid and correct mistakes that do occur. So if they do make a mistake, allow them to basically get past that and back where they need to be. Lastly is robust content. And that says we need to maximize the compatibility with current and future user agents, including assistive technologies. So we have to make sure that our website does have all of the stuff there, you know, text, sound, so on and so forth, that if we come out with technology in the future, it can basically grasp some of the new stuff and utilize it well. Maybe tags inside of our images, maybe ending tags in special places, that type of thing. So we got to make sure that we have our web pages coded perfectly so that when we come out with new stuff, those people who develop that technology are expecting web pages to be in a certain format, so that it basically flows there as well. Well, that kind of brings us to the end of the chapter. Some of the key terms at the end of the chapter, talking about active white space, cache, fixed width page layout, flexible page layout, grid. Talk about a look and feel. How does that basically, the look and feel of a website? Media queries. We're getting more into that CSS. We talked about cascading style sheets last week. Cascading style sheets are those things that allow us to format our web pages and keep the web. So we basically have one place to keep all of our formatting, and each web page basically gets to that formatting and makes each web page look the same. Passive white space and screen resolutions. So that's it for Chapter 2. If you have any questions, by all means, contact me. Basically, please do contact me if you have any questions. Do the homework. Do the quiz. We'll see you next week.